Hi guys, welcome to our coffee times to discuss horror, and today we are here to talk about This Wretched Valley.
It's coffee time!
If you love wilderness, survival horror, this is a must-read for you. But be aware, even though this is a debut novel, it is quite intense and you might not want to go back to the big outdoors anymore after reading this. This was the February pick for the Evil Book Club, which is the book club that I have running at the moment over at my Patreon. So if you want to join us to read a book together every month, the link of my Patreon is down below. And today I'm here to discuss the book spoiler free with you guys. I'm just gonna give you a little bit more information on what the book is about, the themes and all of that, but I'm not gonna mention anything that's gonna be a big spoiler or anything like that. This bone-chilling survival horror book is inspired by the Dyatlov Pass Incident, which it was a case that I had not heard of before, but now I am very much intrigued. 9 Soviet hikers went on a hike to a mountain and they didn't have the best weather conditions, but they still went there. They set up camp and they were discovered dead days after. Nobody knows what happened to them. They died in very mysterious circumstances. Nothing made sense. There's many theories of what happened to them, and that is kind of what inspired this. Overnight, something happened to them and they kind of tried to flee their own tents from their camp, but the weather conditions were not the best, but they did not all die from hypothermia or anything like that. One of them had, like, what it seemed a big hit in the head. Others were missing body parts. Nothing made sense. 2 had severe chest trauma, and like I said, things that didn't add up. They don't know if it was an animal, if they did this to themselves because maybe they lost their minds for whatever reason, if it's something supernatural. Like, it was never really solved. So I find this case very interesting and I really need to watch a documentary on it because I was not aware of it and now I need to know. And now let's go to our book. So 2 researchers and 2 experienced climbers enter the woods in this small town to get to a rock that they have just discovered, and they pretend to be the first to climb it ever and obviously get famous and rich, hopefully, after it. But our story begins actually 7 months after they enter the woods, when their bodies are discovered. Only 3 of the 4 bodies are discovered, and the very interesting thing is that they died in different circumstances and they are all also in very different stages of decomposition, which doesn't make sense because, you know, it's only been 7 months and one of the bodies that is recovered, it's basically just a clean skeleton. And that's how the book starts. And you already know that 3 out of the 4 are gonna be found dead, but the 4th one, who is Dylan, we don't know what happened to her. We don't know if she also died, but her body has not been recovered, if her body is somewhere else. We don't know if she made it out alive, and if she did, why hasn't anybody heard from her in the past 7 months? So it's all a mystery for us. Clay is a geology student and he is trying to find like a rock that has never been discovered before. He has a research project and he's trying to use a technology called LIDAR to find an unmapped rock. So a rock that has never been seen in any map, and he's determined to find it in order to, you know, be famous with his research. Sylvia is his research assistant and she will join him in this adventure. Dylan is a social media climber that is very popular in Instagram, and she even has a deal now with a company that, you know, she's going to partner with now and promote them while she climbs rocks. And so she thinks this is the best way for her to keep that partnership with this company, and since she's friends with Clay, she agrees to go with him and climb the rock. And Dylan also takes Luke with her, which is her boyfriend and the 4th person that is gonna enter the woods together with his dog. So we have 4 adults and one dog that go into the woods. The story switches POVs between the different characters, and that allows us to know what's going on for every different character, what they're thinking, learning a little bit more about their background, their situation. And I really enjoyed that I got to experience, you know, their findings from very different points of view. Climbing is a big theme, especially at the very beginning of the book. There's going to be a lot of terminology when it comes to Clay's, you know, research, that it's going to be new and exciting. So there's a little bit of like, not really sci-fi, but there's a lot of technology involved there at the beginning. And then we're going to get a lot of terminology when it comes to climbing. So I know a few people that read the book did a little bit of research on climbing to really understand properly what the characters were talking about. I did a little bit of indoor climbing many years ago, but I kind of understand certain things and how certain things work. But it was really interesting for me to see how Dylan was explaining what she was doing and marking things, you know, like building a path in the new rock in order to create kind of like trails for other climbers later on to follow. And it was very interesting. You are also learning a little bit about the equipment that is needed for climbing. So climbing is a big topic in the book. It explains how you have to climb a rock over and over again in order for, you know, to have the path really set and for the muscle memory of your body to really recognize the patterns. And I don't know, I found it really interesting. In my opinion, it was really cool to see. It's something that you don't always see in horror books either. So I really enjoyed reading from Dylan's point of view. The wilderness, the big unknown. I have always been really intrigued on these appeal that people have to go to places that have never been explored, to go to places that are considered dangerous, and that's why people normally don't go. Like, there is this drive that we have to explore, to go to where no man has ever gone before, and I find it quite interesting. There might be a reason why we don't go there anymore, or why nobody has ever gone there before. Like, there might be a reason, and in a lot of these horror books, people are actually being warned not to go there, but we still have to. There's this curiosity, there's this thing that we have to do something before we die to leave a legacy or to discover something new, and that drives us into sometimes our own deaths. Isolation, which is something that I'm always really excited to read about, because there is something really terrifying about being isolated. You can be isolated in space, you can be isolated, I don't know, on a ship that is stranded in the middle of nowhere. You can also be on a ship in the middle of the high sea, unable to move, incommunicated, and that really freaks me out. In this case, our main characters are isolated in the middle of these woods. They went in and now they don't know how to get out. And it seems that their equipment, you know, like mobile phones and GPS and things that they had with them has stopped working. And so they're unable to ask for help, and they're unable to get out of the woods. So they're completely isolated, unable to ask for help, and they are just camping there by themselves alone. The woods are cursed. We have many stories about woods and forests that are supposed to be cursed, haunted. We have, for example, The Ritual. We have The Woods Are Dark by Richard Lehman. And we also have movies like The Blair Witch Project. So all of those vibes can also be reflected in this book a little bit. And also, of course, The Ruins is another horror book and horror movie that takes us to a cursed place where, you know, it's not even a place in the map, and there's probably a reason why this place was not in the map in the first place, but our characters still went there. So there's a lot of stories about specific woods or parts in woods that are cursed, and people are being told not to go to. These places are not even marked in maps so that people don't go there, but they always find a way, don't they? And so I love this concept because I love to learn about why is this place cursed? Why, you know, are we warned, like what happened there? I'm always excited to learn about all of these stories. And something that I really love about these stories as well is that in the majority of them, the characters are being warned by someone at some point not to go there because the place is cursed or whatever, but they still go. And so in our story, in This Wretched Valley, the place, the woods, are cursed, and we're gonna see how that curse affects our characters, and it gets really gruesome and really intense. The writing style was great because it was really fast-paced, and the chapter split was also really smart. It is split in different like days and time of the day, so it helps to build up the tension as you see the hours go by and things not getting better for our friends. You're still rooting for them, but you know from the very first chapter that 3 of them are gonna appear dead and the 4th one is still missing. So even though you know 3 of them are gonna die and you know which ones are gonna die, you're still kind of rooting for them, especially for my favorite character, which was Sylvia. Between the chapters, sometimes you get a flashback to the past. There are some flashbacks even back to the 1700s in order to understand things that have happened in this place before that confirm that this place has been cursed for centuries. And I love those chapters as well because they give you kind of like a peek into what happened in the past and why possibly is this place cursed and how can we get out, if we can get out of here at all. So I love to see those like very brief chapters here and there to give us a little bit more information about this place. And some of those chapters that go back to the past had some of the most gruesome, disturbing images. Specifically one of them that I'm not going to talk about because spoilers, but there is a chapter that goes back to the 1700s and something happened that I did not expect the author to really do, and we went there and it was brutal. So you know, I can say that this book is a book where you should probably, you know, check the trigger warnings for. When it comes to writing the horror, I think it was really well done and the gore is beautifully written. Let's dive deeper into the horror of the book. So from the very beginning, as I said, we are already told that 3 of the 4 characters is dead. And the way the book starts with the description of the 3 corpses in different stages of decomposition and with missing limbs and things, it was so gross already from the very beginning, very intense on the body gore, so you kind of already know what you're getting yourself into. The author does use some horror tropes. Some of them, you know, can be applied to different types of subgenres of horror, and other tropes are more based on, you know, survival / wilderness horror. But she did it so well, the way she integrated those tropes. We of course have the person in town that it's always either in a gas station or a diner where our main characters always make a last stop before their final destination, and you know, they tell someone their plans or they ask for directions of how to find this place that they're trying to get to, and they're always warned by someone local not to go there. There's a curse, or people that went there never came back, or people that went there were killed, and so there's always some sort of warning that our main characters of course ignore. And this trope has been done so much, but I love how she did it, and I thought it was a lot of fun, to be honest, and I was giggling like I was having such a good time. I would say this book, for the majority of it, it's a mix between survival horror and psychological horror, because there is a lot of things that are happening that are going to put our characters in the position where they will question everything that's happening around them. The book plays on the universal fear of the unknown, but it gives it a fresh spin. As our main characters hike in and they're going into the woods, their GPS starts not to work, the dog starts to get nervous, so we already start to feel that this place is hostile in some way. And I think the way that she built up the tension was really well executed. The feeling of despair, the feeling of isolation, the feeling that there is no way out, like that kind of like feeling of being like of drowning in this place because there is no way to get out. Like I could feel the characters' despair, the characters' kind of like desperation to try to get out of there. The blood and the deaths and the gore, as I've mentioned, is quite intense. There are some deaths that are more gruesome than others. There were some that were very slow burn deaths described in detail with body horror, and they can be a lot for some readers. So like I said, please do check trigger warnings and keep in mind that this book has a lot of gore and body horror in it that is described in detail. So for me, this was very enjoyable to read. I do like a good gory moment, and I felt really satisfied by the way that the author wrote those scenes. They were really well written, so that's why I was really surprised that this was her debut novel, taking into consideration how good the horror was. Jenny Kiefer is an American horror writer, and she had her first short horror story published in the horror story compilation Howls from the Dark Ages that came out in 2022, and that one was all about medieval horror. So if you're into that, check it out. There are not too many horror books based in medieval times, so I think this might be an interesting one to check out. And of course, This Wretched Valley is her first full-length published novel, which is insane, and I think that she's a very promising author. She also owns and manages the Butcher Cabin bookstore, and it is a bookstore of just horror books in Louisville, Kentucky, and that would be a dream of mine, to have a bookstore that only has horrors, maybe also thrillers in it, like all different ages and stuff, but just thrillers and horror. That would be like my dream. If I had all the money in the world, that's what I would do. That's what I would do. I would recommend this book to people that love, as I've said, wilderness/survival horror. The book had short chapters, it was fast-paced, the atmosphere was great. I loved how the woods became their own character. I loved the chapters going back in the past to learn more about the place. The horror was fantastic, the gore, the blood, it was really well executed. There's different timelines, there's different POVs from the characters, so it was very interesting, you know, to jump back and forth. It might be that some readers don't fancy that as much, but I felt like it was an excellent way to make this story more engaging, and also because the place affects the different characters in different ways, so I feel like giving them their own chapters makes it better. It is a great mystery as well, because from the beginning you know that 3 of them are dead and 1 is still missing, but you don't know what happened to them. So for the whole book you're trying to figure out what's wrong with this place, what happened to them, how are they gonna die, what happened to the 4th one, is it still alive or not. So there's a lot of like mystery and thrill added to the story. I would compare it to stories like The Ruins, The Ritual, Blair Witch Project, even a little bit of Annihilation. So you kind of get the vibe of what you can expect from this book. And I feel like this is also a book that would be great if they would adapt it into a movie. And this was my spoiler-free review of This Wretched Valley by Jenny Kiefer. I hope that you enjoyed the book review. Let me know down below if you have picked up the book or not, or if you are interested at all in survival horror. If you have any other recommendations for survival horror, also let me know down below. Thank you guys, as always, so much for watching, and I hope to see you all, as always, in our next coffee time. Bye!